Hey everyone, it's Sandra here with another great wellness topic. So, today I want to talk about processed foods and why they're so bad for us. So, processed foods, so when we talk about that, most foods, unless you're just eating fresh fruits and vegetables, most foods have some sort of processing. So, even if you think about like frozen vegetables, those aren't necessarily bad for you, but it does have to go through some sort of a process. That's not what we're talking about here today. When I talk about processed foods, I'm talking about what some people are now calling like ultra processed foods. So if you think about shopping at the grocery store, if you've ever heard, you should stick with the perimeter. That's usually where you've got the fresh fruits and vegetables, lean meats, the frozen, hopefully sticking with frozen fruits and veggies. Those tend to be the healthier areas of the grocery store. All the aisles in the middle, anything that's packaged, that's what we're talking about here today. That's all the processed foods. Obviously, some are better than others, so you have to really read your labels and look at your ingredients. So not all of them are bad, but in general, when you really look at those ultra processed foods, that's what we want to try and avoid. We really want to try and stick as much as possible to fresh fruits, vegetables, lean meats, whole grains, that kind of thing. So why do we want to avoid those processed foods? So there's a lot of reasons, a lot of things that they're doing to us that we just want to try and avoid. So first of all, a lot of them have a lot of added sugar in them, and in particular, high fructose corn syrup. So if you hear that term, that's not a good one. That's not something that you want in your foods. So, most of us, I think, know a lot of sugar in our diet isn't something that we want. I'm going to have a whole nother topic actually just on sugar and what it kind of does to us and all the reasons why we should be avoiding it. And then at the end of the month, we're going to have our no added sugar challenge. So we're definitely going to be focusing on that a lot. So just know a lot of these processed foods have a lot of sugar in them. So that's one reason why you're going to want to avoid them. In addition to sugar, a lot of them have a ton of sodium. So that's going to impact things like your blood pressure. So that's another reason to try to avoid those. Even ones that say low sodium, things like that, you're just better off without them, to be quite honest. So a lot of them, the manufacturers are obviously very smart people behind the scenes there. And they know that in our brains, we have kind of this reward mechanism. And so they're specifically creating their foods to target this reward mechanism. So what it does is it makes us want more and more of them. These foods make us feel good. It triggers that in our brain and we want more. So even if we are otherwise full, if we just went by not the emotion, not what's in our brain, but in our stomach, yes, I'm full, I don't need any more food. What it's triggering in our brains is saying, you want to eat more, keep eating this. And so manufacturers are capitalizing on this. Just making it so that it does trigger that in us and keeps us wanting more and more and more. Also, a lot of these ultra processed foods don't have a lot of fiber. So that kind of goes along with this whole idea of wanting more. So fiber is something that helps keep us full throughout the day. So if you're not eating very much of it, a lot of other bad things will happen. But among them, you're gonna keep feeling hungry. So you're gonna wanna keep eating more. So that's another reason to try and avoid these ultra processed foods. They also have a lot of artificial ingredients. So when you look at the label, a lot of people you might hear, talk of, well, you should be able to pronounce all of the ingredients in the foods that you're eating. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. So yes, some like real foods do have weird names. I admit that. But, really looking at it to say, okay, is this like actual food when I look at the ingredients, or is there a lot of like chemicals and things like that in there that you're definitely going to want to avoid? So if you've got like a huge list of ingredients on a package, you'll probably want to avoid it. They also don't usually have a lot of nutrients in them. You know, a lot of them will have all sorts of claims on the packages to say, oh, it's high in this or high in that. A lot of times it's not naturally occurring. They've added it. So it might be fortified, and that's not going to be quite as healthy for you as the nutrients that are just naturally occurring in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, things like that. So kind of watch out for that, especially kind of being fooled by some of those claims that you might see on the packages. Also, highly refined carbohydrates. That's what's in a lot of these ultra processed foods, and that can really mess with your insulin levels, your blood sugar, things like that. So kind of be careful from that perspective too. And then especially if you're having them at night, which I know a lot of us do, I tend to kind of crave things like that in the evening as well, but that can really mess with your sleep too. So another reason to avoid it, especially later on in the day. And I know that, you know, a lot of these companies are in fact our clients. So we kind of see maybe a little bit more behind the scenes in some of the research that we do for them. But I think it's really important to make sure that we are keeping our health in mind and kind of at the forefront of what's most important. And, you know, just making sure that you're reading all of those labels and make the choices that you feel are best for you, for your family, for your overall health. So that's what's, you know, kind of key here. Obviously, a little bit here and there, in my opinion, not the end of the world. I'm certainly not perfect myself in all of these things. We do have quite a bit of packaged foods in our pantry as I speak. But what's important is to make the best choices of those, because I don't expect everyone is just going to eat fruits and veggies all day long. You know, we need some of these, or at least we feel like we need some of these other things as well. So just make the best choices that you can, given what you have available to you, given, you know, kind of your needs, your lifestyle, things like that. So hopefully you found this helpful. If you have questions or anything to add, definitely comment on the activity, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.